All right, we're going to do track for track on the new album by B Nasty. That's me. Fully produced by NastyOnTheBeats. The name of the album is The Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim. I Am Art, and This Is. It was released on March 21st, 2025. And I'm really proud of that project. And on my website, www.NastyOnTheBeats.com, I do a track for track written out. It kind of talks about each track in brief form, what went into it, the inspiration behind it, and so forth. And just trying something new and wanting to do track for track in video format. And so we'll be starting with this album, and then we'll go back and do the other recorded projects, but possibly even go back and do some of the instrumental albums that I put out and put together. So let's get into it. Again, the album was released March 21st, which is today is April 3rd, so about 2 weeks ago. I put the album out. Really enjoyed putting the project together. Again, it was a sneak project. Meaning that I wasn't anticipating doing it. I had literally just come off the producing, writing, recording the Congress album with Lyric Kill, and we put that out on January 20th. So you see, right at 2 months later, I had this next album produced, recorded, mixed, mastered, and released. Let's talk a little bit about how the album got started, and then we'll go down each track. So again, the Congress album was released on January 20th, 2025. And if I'm correct, the following night, it was either the 21st or the 22nd, we did an official online listening party. And we did it through Bandcamp. We went on Facebook and Instagram Live, and we just kind of ran it from there. And the interesting thing about that is immediately concluding that. So we did that at Killer's crib upstairs where typically we do the recording. And that's also where I sleep. It's kind of like a guest area. And so immediately after we finished that listening party, I wasn't sleepy. It was about 10:30. Had a little giggle water in me. And I said, well, let me go ahead and just, my beat machine was out. Let me go ahead and plug it in and work on some beats. You know what I mean? And so the first beat that was made became on this album, Can't Help It. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I'll just let you know, that's how the first beat for the album got made before I even knew it was going to be a project. I left Killer's crib a few days after that. Went back to Shreveport to visit Shreveport Bossier to visit family. And then I found myself heading down to Houston. And on my trip to Houston, I live as a nomad. I literally live out of my van. So on my trip to Houston, just started making some more beats, wanting to follow up the Congress album with working towards another Congress album, just being honest with it. And so I just started making beats. Super Bowl Sunday comes up. I had some issues with my car, so I had to walk a couple of places. Went to a coffee shop, was making beats there, and then went about a mile away, went to a park, and they had electricity for me to plug in, so I stayed till about 3 o'clock in the morning making a bunch of beats, and a lot of the beats ended up on this new project. And so while in Houston, getting ready to do a feature performance out in Baton Rouge, I was gearing up for that, so I was working on getting my show set together, blah, 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 working on these new beats. And all of a sudden, just rhymes started to come together. And then I still was thinking about making it a Congress project, you know what I mean? And so it just kind of picked up from there. I just started making these series of beats and fitting them together. And you write a few bars for it, and then that turns into 8, turns into 16. Maybe you do a 24, drop a chorus, blah, 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 and it kind of picked up from there. Went out to Baton Rouge and continued to work on the album, did my feature performance and so forth. And now the album is starting to come together package-wise. Like I'm starting to map out what songs I want to put on there, how I want to develop it, you know what I mean, and so forth. So that's how it happens. Like I said, it was really not a sneak project in the sense of I didn't know I was going to be working on something, because I'm always working on something. I'm always making beats. You know what I mean? You can call me a producer, you can call me a beat maker, but you won't call me idle. You know what I mean? I'm always working on something. I'm an artist like that. So whether I rap on it or I drop it in Dropbox and let the crew get at some of the beats, or, you know, try to shop them around or whatever, which I'm going to work on soon, I'm always working on beats. You know what I mean? So when I was naming the album, I've got a list. I got a notebook full of ideas that are either going to be album titles or song titles or lines in a, you know, there are things I want to include in my whole artistic endeavor and so forth, whether it gets done or not. And some of the titles of that I use in my podcast, as I use in my prophetic ministry and operation and so forth, I wanted to start including. So I was like, how can I include, you know, and start scratching some of this shit off my list? Just being honest. So I said I would use that, the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim. That way I can incorporate that name into the title and scratch that off the list. I am art and this is. You know what I mean? And that title changed a couple of times, at least the I am art and this is part. That's how the title came about. The Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim, I am art and this is. Great way to tie the two together and so forth. Plus I had taken so many pictures for my podcast, you know what I mean? And so, you know, use some of those and weave them together. You see it's a very artistic cover or what have you. I'm very proud of this project and what went into it. So let's start to get into, and we'll go down as with the track listing. Obviously the opening track is art. It's called Art Supplies, and it's two guys. It's like a boss and his assistant or whatever, and they're having a conversation about, you know, what's going on with the boss, you know what I mean, and he's demanding art supplies, you know what I mean. And it's interesting, when I wrote it, I literally wrote that sitting in front of the you know, the laptop recording. It's like I got to do something to open the album up. I didn't want to just jump right into, you know, the Fruit of My Justice, which is this next track. I didn't want to just jump right into that. So what I ended up doing was, I think I went in my phone and I was just writing out art supplies. And then I really wanted it to sound organic. You know what I mean? I wanted it to sound authentic. That's the word, authentic. And so I pretty much did it in 2 takes between the voices. You know what I mean? So I'm actually doing both parts. You know what I mean? And what I wrote down, I didn't say all of it. So I had more art supplies done, but in the passion of recording, you know what I mean, I didn't want to be reading it. So what you hear is what I gave. I want, you know, get me some crayons, some colored pencils, easels. So that's why you hear some musical instruments. You hear some, I left out paint. You know what I mean? But I just, whatever came to my mind at that moment, after looking at my phone, you know what I mean? Whatever came to my mind, that's what went in there. You know what I mean? Because I really wanted to open the project that you understand the conjunctive reality that I'm putting forth between art and justice. And so as I talk about it, imagine art being expressed judicially, and imagine justice being handled artistically. You know, that's probably the best way I've said it since I've been talking about it. So that's what that is. So that's how that opens up. And, you know, I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand. What do you know what I mean? You heard me loud and clear. I need art supplies. You know what I mean? And by the way, that includes anything that's art related. You know what I mean? And so that's what he's getting at. And he said, what is this about? Justice. You know what I mean? And the kick goes in. So that's track 1. Fruit of My Justice. By the way, that title changed several times. The opening lines of it, the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim, the son of preside forever, with no letter grade on a curve. The name, the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim. Judge Hunter Greene is actually the name of a judge in Baton Rouge who I had to stand before. And, you know, I've had it out with him anyway in a bunch of different ways since then. Not really interactively, but I swore after I had to go to court because I don't fuck with America's justice system like that. It ain't justice at all. At all. But that being said, I swore I would take his name since he wants to sign off on documents to rule, and I'm going to use his name. You know what I mean? So I did a podcast called Judge Hunter Greene and Nasty Lavender that I ran for a while. It's still up and running, by the way. I just don't necessarily post episodes for it anymore, or haven't. Concerning fruit of my justice, the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim, the son of preside forever, with no letter grade on the curve. That the son of preside forever is the last lyrics of the Congress album. You hear me on No Term Limits, that's the last song. This nomad had picked it like a medicated toe pad for groceries to go bad and old dad's here. Been a road had of where the fuck we gonna reside. See the fire of this nasty king, the son of preside forever. And then, so you see I open up the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim, the son of preside forever, with no letter grade on the curve. That at one time was going to be the title, the son of preside. I actually had it written out, and I changed it to the fruit of my justice. So what I like about that track is the beat sounds like a comic book cartoon. It's got that type of feel to it, you know what I mean? When I first made the beat, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I like how that the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim, the son of preside forever, with no letter grade on a curve, sunspot to a not so mellow team. And it's got a lot of deep overlaid vocals, rain, fire, and it's really introducing me into this role, you know what I mean? And it's basically making it known I'm stepping into this role of judge and judiciary in artistic fashion, and it gets into reasons why. What a lot of people don't know that I discuss in a lot of my music is judging the fallen angelic host. You know what I mean? The angels that rebelled with Satan, Satan himself, and so forth. And so, in ending the Congress album, when you hear it's been a road had of where the fuck we gonna reside, that's talking about them. You know what I mean? Where do they go? They've been kicked out of the unseen world. They are now fully terrestrial and they cannot get out. You see what I'm saying? It's been a road had of where the fuck we gonna reside. See the fire of this nasty king, the son of preside forever. You know what I mean? So that's how you get that particular track. And you hear me artistically going through it. Rain, fire. You know what I mean? So I'm really, really proud of that track. And then you hear me singing at the end. Overlap vocals. The wind won't bind the only breathing of the air to the throne. Best to leave him alone. Do it. You know what I mean? I love how it came out. Vengeance is mine, Lord of the repay. Collateral in a casual. Something to start, to inflict. You know, and the measure of its waging of its justice, the measure of art. Yeah. So came out really good. Can't Help It, as I mentioned before, Can't Help It was the first beat made for the album before I knew it was going to be an album. What I like about it, solid boom bap. That's an international sample, actually. The doom 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 doom. And when I finally started writing it, I knew I wanted to do something hip-hop-ish with it. You know what I mean? And that's what it's talking about. It's my view and judgment against what some people say about hip-hop. That hip-hop is dead. You know what I mean? And it's really calling everybody to task. I recognize there's an economic element. There's a critical element. There's a personal taste element as an artist, as a listener. And so I tell my story and then I get into why I got in this, how I got in this, what I get from this, and so forth, and call people to task with some of the bullshit. You know what I mean? I came in this game with an innocent mind of creativity, a trusting crushed groove and a light heart, affection for a deep soul record collection, and 6 sets of gears fit for moving the right parts. To fight art just because you ain't feeling the paintbrush or the palette's an invalid stroke to the goal. Like putting sugar and grits and raisins in the salad, only proving the diversity of feeding the soul. So I'm basically talking about with hip hop, there's a very personal element to being an artist and a listener, and let it be personal. You know what I mean? And then, and so the chorus is, the mic plugs in, the DJ's on the wheels, this MC's still willing to bust it, and thus I can't help it if you're not still in the game, and I can't help it if you're not feeling the same. You know what I mean? It's basically saying I'm a person who proves that there's a genuine element to preserving hip-hop in the broad sense and in the very individual sense. You know what I mean? Second verse, excuses in music are like assholes playing the blues with a proctologist in the glove. And it goes on from there. You know what I mean? So you get the gist of it. And then the last verse is really me talking about the feuding between women. And even men getting in the conversation about, the sophisticated, quote unquote, women who don't take their clothes off, chiding those who do, and vice versa. Like, there's room for all of it. You know what I mean? And I talk about how I really feel about women, how I feel about sex, how I feel about tight bars, and so forth. You know what I mean? So that's what that track is. And I really, what I like about it is I'm very, very honest in it, in my expression towards hip hop, and where I'm talking about art and justice from an American, worldwide, governmental, spiritual standpoint throughout the rest of the album, I'm really incorporating it in different aspects of my life. You know what I mean? So can't help it. Pouring Out Pennies. Interesting track. I remember exactly where I was at. That's probably the song that kicked off the beats from an album's, from an album standpoint of knowing, okay, yeah, we're going to roll from here. I told you Can't Help It was one of the first beats made, if not the first beat made. That particular day regarding the pouring out pennies, I remember my car wouldn't start. I was parked at the gym and in Pearland, Texas. And that morning, it was a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, and my car wouldn't start. I think I had ran the battery down the night before or whatever. So what I did was I walked up the street to the coffee shop, brought all my stuff with me, my bag, my book bag with my laptop and my MPC, and I just started making beats from there. And that was the beat that came out. I spent quite a bit of time sitting there working on it, writing the, started penning the lyrics and everything, putting it in my phone. And so it just kind of picked up from there. The gist of the track was really to be on, when you hear it, you know what I mean? And as I was writing it, it was trying to incorporate a bunch of things in a bunch of different ways artistically. You know what I mean? So you hear stuff about culinary in there. You hear stuff about museums. You hear stuff about, I got even like a coffee brew reference in there. And so, again, on some heavy judgment, prophetic operation, things that I'm doing, some things sexually and so forth, and all of that just kind of mixed in. I talk about the banking industry in there a little bit, you know what I mean? And so it's a bunch of observations. If you can imagine being in a standing in the middle of a city per se, a busy city, and almost spinning around and taking a bunch of stuff in, of things that you see, and then incorporating it into, in an artistic fashion, you know what I mean? What I like about how it was written is the second verse was written first. So before I knew the format of the song, what I was going to do, the plus in the heart is a given. That's how I started out. So what I did was the first verse opens up with the alternative, the minus and the mind versus the plus in the heart. So that's how I did that. So yeah, just trying something different with it. And I really like how it came out. Like I said, I was really into the beat, and the horns in it, still using international samples. And I called it Pouring Out Pennies. The Pouring Out Pennies is the name of the beat. So I left it as the reference for the actual song title. You know what I mean? A tasty arraignment. Again, no vocals on it. I like the way that it sounded when I was starting to put the album together. Like I said, I like my albums to be kind of full, give you a full entertainment experience. So I threw a couple of interludes in there, and A Tasty Arraignment is one of them. I don't even remember making the beat. I know it's one of my beats, but I don't remember the day that I made it. But I like that because it has like a real subtle feel to it. I didn't feel the need to like rap on it, so I just kind of left it as an interlude. You know what I mean? And the title, just from a using a justice reference and then judicial reference and then an artistic reference. A tasty arraignment. You know what I mean? So that's how that came about. Pretty self-explanatory with that. I just like the way that it sounded. Nice bridge from the first 3 or 4 tracks on to the next one. You know what I mean? Woo! Fan blades. It's one of the 2 beats on the album that don't actually have drums. I was on somebody's Instagram live last night too. We were talking about songs that don't have drums and how I feel about them. You know what I mean? I was in the comments and I was like, I prefer either one, but if it doesn't have any drums, you got to really be spitting on it. I feel that about any song, but when there's no drums, you got to be spitting. You know what I mean? Shout out to a lot of the artists that have done real well with that. You know what I mean? Fan blades, when I started writing it, it's interesting because the concept, I would venture to say, came before I even had a beat for it. I had thought about that before. I think it's in my notes somewhere where I was talking about actually making a song against the fans that actually, without necessarily dissing the fans, but calls them out. You know what I mean? I feel like the music industry, which I understand, is heavily driven by fans because of the financial aspect. And especially, you go back before DSPs really took over, trying to make a hard record sale. And I mean, when I say hard, I mean selling a cassette tape or selling an actual vinyl record or selling a CD was everything. You know what I mean? You had a tangible product, and then you get into the singles aspect, which is the same thing, So the money was really, really rolling in based on that. You know what I mean? And so that's where PR comes in. That's where an A&R comes in to fit your personality and what you do and so forth around generating income from record sales, generating record sales, even from the touring aspect. If you got fans who are or people who are against what you're doing, it can affect sponsorships, it can affect touring, it can affect record sales, blah, blah, blah. Because of that, fans get away with a lot of shit, especially now that communication with artists is a lot more direct. Like if you have an X/Twitter page, you have an Instagram page, you have a Facebook page that you're active on, that they have access to doing stuff on, then they can say almost anything. You know what I mean? This wasn't a shot at people who are actual fans of artists and music. It's really a shot at those who say they are and really aren't. You know what I mean? And I don't think it gets talked about enough. Not everybody who talks about rap and hip hop as a collective, you know what I mean, artistic expression down to an individual artist is really a fan of the artist. They really are critics. And I don't mean just in the medium of, or the media of, magazine editors or radio or podcast hosts or what have you. I mean actual individuals who will go on social media who really don't give a shit about the music more than they do talking about it. And I'm not that guy. Me and Lyric Kill talk about this a lot. We have a lot of good conversations that we know we should be podcasting. You know what I mean? We'll get around to it. But there are individuals who I feel like aren't real lovers of the music at all. I'm a person who, when I listen to music for the music, and what I don't like, I just don't play. I'll have my critiques about it, but I don't spend a lot of my time on social media, because I'm on social media a lot. I don't spend a lot of my time on social media talking about the shit I don't like. When it comes to the music, I spend my time talking more about what I do like than I do what I don't like. So I wrote this with the intent of coming at fans. Because I don't think, let me tell you something. Right now I'm an older artist, you know what I mean? And newer coming back into it. There was a long gap from when I did music to now, you know what I mean? I cut off in like 2010 and came back in 2023, you know what I mean? So I don't have the large following, and I may never get it because of this record. I don't think it's that bad, by the way, but you know what I'm saying? What if it became that? I'm so spiritual in who I am in God. I really don't give much of a fuck what people think about me when I've cleared it with him, when I'm confident in him. Because people are often assholes for no reason. And it's a lot of people like that in hip hop, as artists, or industry execs and fans. You hear songs like that against the record business, the record industry, right or wrong. Like, people have these experiences with record labels, record execs. Some even talk about shit that goes on at venues. You hardly ever hear rappers dissing each other. You hardly ever hear somebody actually take a shot at the people who make them money. If they actually do make them money. The fans. You know what I mean? So you become a pawn, if you will. You got to tap dance for the fans. And right now, while I'm not making very much from the music or whatever, I'm taking the opportunity to say, and that way it'll weed out. Because if you really tell the truth, you know when you're being an asshole. You know what I mean? If you really examine yourself like the Bible says to do, you know what I mean? To be honest. Anyway. And if you just don't like somebody, blah, 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 then say that. But anyway, so that's what the song is about. I know I'm talking long about that track, but it's probably the one that's the most unique in the sense of what I've ever heard before. I've never heard anybody diss fans. You know what I mean? So. Black Bailiff. I gotta be honest. Initially, I sent the beat. Again, no drums. I sent the beat to Killer. And I told Killer, you've been asking me for loop joints or whatever. So I sent it to him. I don't know if he ever tried to do anything with it. We just never talked about it beyond that, but I sent it to him, you know what I mean? And I liked how it sounded. It has a real gritty, grimy sound to it, and it just keeps looping. So I didn't know what I was going to do with it at first. It was kind of, I put it on in a file sharing Dropbox, and if he came back with something great. And I was making other beats, you know what I mean? And it's probably in the period where I wasn't quite sure I was going to do an album yet, you know what I mean, or what it was going to be. The gist of the song is obvious. I'm talking about the black bailiff or sheriff and a judge. You know, when you go to court, that's an actual experience. And you know what's crazy? I wasn't in there for like any drug activity or theft, armed robbery, nothing like that. I was in there for traffic. You know what I mean? Look, I don't try to make my life more than it is. You know what I mean? I'm not out here wilding out like that. But I don't fuck with law enforcement. I'm that deep in the spirit of God. I understand how God wants justice and righteousness and people to be handled when you're governing them. And they are the furthest thing from it. That doesn't mean it's all of them, but the system that they operate in is ungodly from the root. You see what I'm saying? I do not fuck with law enforcement like that. So anyway, this was based on something that happened to me in like 2023. You know what I mean? Traffic issues or whatever. And I go to court. I specifically wanted to go. It didn't matter what deal they was offered. I had to go to court. I operate for the Lord. So there's certain things I got to do and say and blah, blah, blah. As a prophecy and a judgment against them. I do heavy shit over here, folks. They don't realize it yet. But they will. You know what I mean? Whether they know it's me or what have you. You about to see some shit in America you ain't never seen before. I'm a prophetic Emcee, and people don't understand that, so it just sounds like shit talk until the shit happens. You know what I mean? Anyway. So I wrote about it. I'll never forget because I went there twice. First for the initial and then to come back, because I told them I wanted to contest. I watched how easily they got money out of people. You know what I mean? So when I finally went back to court, I'll never forget, it was a woman and a man, and when they were both black. And it's just the way that they look at people. Man, fuck America, man. Fuck America's little system of law. Because it's based on criminalizing the person. There's no love in that. There's no mercy. There's no grace. There's no gospel in that. And so you hear me say that. And I say it from a judgment standpoint. It's a fuck you letter to my people who work in that system. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to make the system all white, but whoever you are, you finna pay for being in that system. That's all I'm saying. So I go off the black bailiff, stared me in my eyes, convinced the Philistine. Then the Philistine I'm talking about is the actual either judge or district attorney and so forth. Who else is in there, who they're representing. Stared me in my face, convinced the Philistine would weigh lifts of justice pure. Like, you looking at me like the system that you're working for is godly. It is not, whether you know it or not. You know what I mean? And so that's how I'm coming off. And I'm letting them know you finna catch exactly what this judge is finna catch. It's all shit talk now. You see what I'm saying? System is good, big, and bulky. Got it, you know what I mean? You got it strapped in well. I'm telling you, the Lord about to pick this shit apart. You know what I mean? And everybody finna get touched. You have no right to govern another individual not based on the strict righteousness of God. That's what I'm coming to. That's what a lot of my records are about. The righteousness and justice of God. You know what I mean? So that's how I wrote it. You know what I mean? It's kind of long. It's one verse. You know what I mean? I like that I got a little portion in there. You want to see how well a chief could feed a zebra with beef and fee attached to me? I go off in there. And obviously, the zebra reference is the black and white. You know what I mean? So it's like a black man working in a white system. So a lot of cunning quips in there, little references in there, some entendres and so forth. But I like how grimy the track sounded. You know what I mean? And so when I finally got into writing it, I had to take myself back to how I felt that day. You know what I mean? And it's a combination of more than just that particular instance. I've been in court a couple of times, but that's the reference. How dare you be in my people? Look at me. I understand having a job, but look at me like this system that I'm sitting under that you're working for is somehow, anyway. Art is artillery. What's unique about it is you hear my homie Onslaught, buddy of mine was, part of the crew or whatever. I just wanted to, he writes a lot, but he hadn't done a whole lot of recording. And then I come back in and start doing my thing. And I just wanted to get his voice. He's got a unique, loud, boisterous voice. But in this, you kind of hear him kind of subtle. But these were based on, some messages he had sent via like text message, vocally, regarding some other songs. And I just incorporated them into this. I like the up-tempo, the boom, boom, bap type style to it. I added the machine gun in there, and I wanted to do something where I was just kind of blasting off. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's what's happening. You know what I mean? I'm getting into it. And I'm talking about, again, I use sex, if you will, sex as a weapon. Sex will be a tool of judgment in these coming days. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm gearing people up for in a bunch of different ways. Sexuality will take on its righteous posture from God's standpoint, not what man says. Trying to prohibit porn or prohibit this and prohibit that. It will be in the guidelines of what God says it should be. And not in the religious sense that most people think. You know what I mean? You don't have a right to tell somebody who they can fuck. From a righteous standpoint, I don't get into homosexuality, but who is the government to try to step in? So anyway, I'm getting a little bit more broad than what the track is about. But I talk a lot about sex. And you even see where I talk a lot of about how children, but not children. You know what I mean? Like where parents and their offspring will get into it over sexuality. There'll be a divide between a daughter and her father regarding sexuality. You see what I'm saying? So, and so you hear that reference in there. You know what I mean? The daughter was given head to my verses. You mean he? I think not. With blessings and curses, and so it goes off on there. The second verse is geared towards a particular, to the university I went to. I went to Dillard University. And I don't know if most people caught this in the, because you hear me say the Avenue of the Oaks, and that's Dillard University, a part of Dillard University, like the main grassy courtyard area in the front of the expanse in the front of the school. It's a small school, but anyway, Avenue of the Oaks. So you hear me mention Avenue of the Oaks, so that kind of tips it off. But it's actually talking about judgment sexually based on individuals who reject what it is that I do, what it is that I'm trying to tell them about the kingdom of God and so forth. But now this is more a familial aspect. These are people who I know went to school with or didn't, like, no, but this is an at-home judgment. You know what I mean? And so if you get touched in this, not my problem. You know what I mean? I'm telling you what the intent is. So it's very, that was probably the one that's a little bit more closer to home than people realize. You know what I mean? And it's a way of saying, I can't spare you just because we went to school together. You get caught in this judgment, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And so, but in it, you hear me, with my, again, double entendres and different punchlines or whatever, really ripping off from that aspect. And from an artistic standpoint, you hear me say art is artillery. You know what I mean? The title comes from, if you go back to my David album, which was only released, a few months before that. I released it on Christmas Eve of 2024. I got a song on there called War Drunk on Milk. And in it, so instead of focusing on woke and sleep patterns, I just hope that they understand. I align fully with 3 brandies and a candy corn fetish to tell them my main shucks the production and rhyme bully. Art is artillery, so killer be killed from the canvas. And that's actually, that line, art is artillery, I pulled out of the acapella of that song and did it. There was a time when I was making these beats, sitting at this park late at night, to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I did a beat for Killer using a reference out of the Congress album. And so I went back and made one for myself using that, art is artillery, and run it in there as part of the chorus or whatever. So that's how it came together. I really like how it came out. You can hear how bold I am and the dopeness of the lyrics and so forth. I even threw a reference in there. It speaks the not to trees. And I go on to say proceeded to rot. So you get the to rot, but you also get the to rot. I got a name, Tarot Blackstone, for a project that I used the name in the podcast before, but I'm using it on an album me and Killer anticipating down the road. A lot of the beats are already made. So a lot of times I sneak references of, things I'm working on that you may not quite be aware of. You know what I mean? I go ahead and push them into, so when you hear him later, you go, oh, I remember when he said such and such. You know what I mean? So, self-guarding. Self-guarding. Inspired by the beat. Some stuff you have a concept and then you make a beat around it, or you have a beat, you come up with a concept, and then I was really, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with it. So I kind of double dutched into it. You know what I mean? Where it was like, okay, let me just start and then see where it goes. The cycle in God, invest dividends, no disciple in odds. It kind of goes like that. The first couple of lines have to do with not being discipled by the church. So you actually hear the cycle in God but no disciple in Oz. The first initial lines is me talking about how the Holy Spirit is who leads me. Because if I let the church disciple me, I've been discipled by in churches before. And it wasn't all bad. That's not what I'm getting at. But, I'm basically making it known. My relationship with the Spirit of God is so direct now, I really don't need the church to do much for me. You know what I mean? So that is. No disciple in Oz. That means there's no, I don't have to be misled because I'm being led by the Spirit of God. So wherever he takes me, I'm going to keep checking with him when I feel a certain way about something, but I know how to hear the voice of God. So I don't need the church to try to grab my hand and try to teach me some shit that I know he can give, because I've been scarred by it. You know what I mean? And without holding bitterness, I'm a judge of it now. You know what I mean? Again, heavy on some judgment stuff in there. And you hear the sexuality reference that I eventually get to, and especially in the second and third verses. So that's what it is. It's explaining my posture, obviously by the title, self-guarding. Now, I'm not self-guarded in the spiritual. The Holy Spirit's doing that, but in the natural, because I'm led by the Spirit of God, he's guarding me, but I'm guarding myself by him, if you will. So that's what the reference is. I'm self-guarding. And it also kind of leans over to how women will eventually see me. You know what I mean? See myself in a God posture. You know what I mean? Heavy. You know what I mean? Heavy in there. And obviously, you like I said, you hear the sexual references. In the first verse, I talk about a dinner guest dressed as the blessed. It was supposed to be blessed with the blessed Yeshua. And when I was recording it, I said as the blessed Yeshua. Then I left it in there because I'm a part of his body. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm sitting. You can say sitting with him, but also sitting as him because I'm a part. We're seated together. You know what I mean? And on the earth, in regards to his kingdom operation right now, while he's in heaven, I represent him on the earth. So it's that reference. So you see how deeply knit I am in my spiritual posture regarding who I am to the Lord Yeshua. Like, I don't put anybody in between he and I. And I take my role in him very, very seriously, what my operation is and so forth. You get a lot of that in this particular you get a lot of that in this particular song. Also, as you hear the chorus, as the sun was born and the dawning of night, you know what I mean? I go there. I'm self-guarding. When the moon went AWOL, the sun went free. So the daughters of daylight all answer to me. You know what I mean? Like I say, it's heavy shit. It's heavy shit what I do. It's heavy shit that I'm saying. It's prophetic. And a lot of people say, well, you're just talking shit. It'll sound like that until you start to see it. Cage Heat. Again, another beat that I made that I thought was, subtle enough to make an interlude. You could probably rap over. You could probably rap over the other one I was talking about, a Tasty Raiment. But it's got a nice little subtle. I can cut it off. Just give you a little something to bridge until we get into the next songs. I'm, like I said, I'm a producer too. So, making beats and all of that. How can we fill this project out? You hear a little bit of that on the David album. I'll give some interludes in there that are just instrumental. You know what I mean? Inspired largely by Pete Rock, even though he would make the end of a track where he put it as opposed to like making a separate track. I don't know if that's exclusive to Pete Rock, but he's the only one off the top of my head that I can call that does it. Whoo! Take honey, honey, make money, money, money. Woo, make money. Oh, deep. It's deep. That's all I'm going to say. Obviously, it's on the same length of the others where, judgment and sexuality and so forth. In it, you hear, though, the Caleb and the Hosh. That's Joshua. Caleb and Joshua. in the dirt and the wash and wage of willing. That's me talking about conquering the promised land. That's where you get the honey reference from. You know what I mean? I originally was going to call it Take Honey. But I thought, I'll make the title Make Money. Imagine, if you will, now this might throw you off. Imagine women. I won't say which women. Imagine women who come to a king, a conquering king, for sexual favor, sexual pleasure, and paying him for it. You see what I'm saying? The feverish analysis kind of got into it a little bit, like almost like a male gigolo, where the women actually have a target to get with this man to pay him for his sexual services. Okay, so that's the gist of what. And it goes into a bunch of different arenas with that. You know what I mean? But that's what it is. And men losing their women behind it. That's what the take, let me just go ahead and call it. That's what the take honey is. Okay, you didn't do right by this woman over here. Or you fucked something else up with the Lord. And so he's taking this woman from you. By the way, I lived it. So I lived it. When you refuse the spirit to obey the spirit of the Lord, because he's not asking a lot. I told you the 3 laws he gave me. Live abundantly, love increasingly, leave people the fuck alone. And that's individual, that's governmental. You see what I'm saying? It's righteous judgment now. So what you refuse to do for the Lord, he gonna get something out of you. That's the judgment. And so this woman over here that either you weren't treating her right or you were doing something else off, God took that one from you. That's what the take honey is. And I'm taking the honey, her, and her money. You see her? People's like, man, is this what he's rapping about? I told you, sex is a part of the judgment. It's a major part of it. The last line of the last verse, you actually hear me say it, and now you're wasting honeycomb and your money gone. That's like saying, you give your woman money, and she brings her body and the money to me. So now you're wasting honeycomb and your money gone. I don't know, people, when they go back now and listen, they're like, fuck. Maybe I don't dance to this song. It was I want to say it was one of the last beats made. I think I came back in. That wasn't when I don't think I made it in Pearland. I think that might have been made in Baton Rouge. You know what I mean? I went to Baton Rouge and I was making beats. If I'm correct. I don't think it was made in that first long batch series that I was in. I think it came later. But I liked how it got a nice boom bap sound. You know what I mean? Still international samples. Reminds me a little bit of Pouring Out Pennies. Just because some of the horns that are in it. You know what I mean? Take honey, honey, make money, money, money. Take honey, honey, make money, money, money. So that's what it is. It's me taking women. And it's not me necessarily stealing their money. They're willfully bringing it to me. By the way, there's a biblical reference for it. It doesn't say where the women come from, but if you read Isaiah 4:1, I don't think women in general are ready for that. Isaiah 4:1 talks about in 7 women shall come to one man, saying, we will eat our own food and buy our own clothes, only let us be called by your name. People are not picking up what that's saying. There's going to come a time where women will be so desirous and so shamed in the sense of not having a man to represent them sexually or what have you, where they'll cling to, 7 will cling to 1. Now, I believe it's all kind of other spiritual references. There's also a reference, I believe, to Christ and the church. That Isaiah's saying it that way so that the Jews can't pick up on it, because the idea of Gentiles was being involved in anything with the Lord was Jews didn't, or the Israelites didn't recognize. But that's what it is. 7 women shall cleave or cling to one man, saying, we will buy our own food. So that means they don't need him financially, but they still need him. You know what I mean? So I take it a step further and said, not only do they not need me financially, they are providing for me financially. They're bringing money to me. Their bodies and their money is coming to me. You know what I mean? So as a tool of pleasure for me, but as a tool of judgment against. So it's heavy shit. I get into this. Obviously, all of my records have sexual references to them. I've been jamming dual foreign policies on the Congress, the inauguration album. There's a line in there where I says, the who wide enough to cover if an international passion would suddenly crash and explode to an overload. That's me talking about, imagine an outbreak, or inbreak even, an outbreak where internationally women are suddenly, stimulated to want to be with me. It's a heavy concept. It's, might make a movie about it, but you get what I'm saying. The who is wide enough to cover if an international passion would suddenly crash and explode to an overload. Still fold bologna and hold dear bread to the dough instead, take it to the head. You know what I mean? So that's what that is. It's talking about being able to service multiple women who suddenly have a need. And I believe God will have it strategic. She'll know when she needs to come see me. You got a small window of opportunity to go get at him because he's busy. Take honey, honey, make money, money, money. Take honey, honey, make money, money, money. Hey. Who I am. Boy, that title, that might be the song that changed the titles the most. Next to, what I say, what's the opening song? Fruit of My Justice. Between the two of those, the title changed so many times between them. Matter of fact, I'm sitting at I'll go ahead and say it, Panera Bread. I'm sitting outside of the Panera Bread. I pulled up here a couple of hours ago and I got tired. I was on the road driving, so I pulled off, had me a little nap, and then I started finishing this recording because I started yesterday. So I can get it all, and then I'll get it edited or what have you. But the song was actually initiated here. The beat and the Black Infinity reference. So I made the song, I made the beat. I specifically made it because I wanted it after all the beats that I had, or of all the beats that I had, a lot of good ones. I was like, how do I go out with a bang? And that's why you hear me say it. And we got to go out with a bang, baby, because I like how we ended the Congress album. You know what I mean? And so I specifically sat down and went to work on the beat, look for my samples, blah, blah, blah. Do, 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 do. Put that together. And then I wanted to put a sample in it. Black Infinity was the reference. I know I want to do something with infinity. You hear me in the song saying Black Lord, Infinity, Art Marvel. You know what I mean? And so, the song kind of builds up to that point. But I wanted a sample that would say Black Infinity or something along those lines. So I was like, shit, I don't feel like going to search through samples right now. You know what I mean? Search through songs or whatever. So I was like, well, let me just go out to my van and I'll record myself saying what I want. I can sing a little bit. And so I did. I came out to my van. I still got the original recording. And I just, for about a minute, I was just saying different things. You hear me say the, hey, 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 oh, hey. Just doing that. Hey, hey, oh, hey. Black Infinity. I said that a couple of times. And then, Like I said, I don't think I was in the van 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Got out and ran it into the MPC and, got to chopping it and moving things around. And that's why you hear that in the music. Every vocal you hear in that song is me. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, Black Infinity. I remember when I started writing it though. I just came from shooting ball, and I needed a nap. I got to get my rest, so I was getting ready to go take a nap, and I pulled up to like a Target store, just because it was an open parking lot, and I thought I was finna go to sleep, and all of a sudden the words start coming. I went X to a full flexible of the sets that had met at the birth, and it just started coming. It's like shit. So easily the first verse got written right there in that parking lot. You know what I mean? Between there and I think the gym that I went to next door. I mean, across the street. So another gym to work out. So yeah, that's how that came together. And like I said, I just wanted to be on some, let's. I'm a ripping, bullying type artist anyway. You know what I mean? My bars are really strategic and so forth. But I wanted it to fit the track and build to who God is making me into. A marvel of a... When people realize, like when you see me, I'm sitting here in a red t-shirt, red cap, both came probably from a thrift store. You know what I mean? Faded shorts or whatever. When people see me, I don't think they realize half the power that I actually possess in God. The reason why a lot of people don't attribute it to that, because they want me to put on a show or show me what you can do. They did the same shit to Yeshua. That's not how this works. You know what I mean? I'm not a magician. You know what I mean? That just does what the fuck I want to do in to your liking, especially. You know what I mean? Knowing when and how to access what God wants you to access is how Yeshua's ministry was so effective. He knew when he could tell, okay, Peter, reach into this sea over here. A fish will come up, open his mouth, there's a gold. See, it's knowing what God is positioning where and how, what to do when. So there's all kinds of things that I do and get happy. I've had people had dreams about me and tell me about it, Some, you kind of see the results because they don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you. But I've had a couple of people call because they either experience something and I attribute it and they don't know it's me and they're just telling me, or they'll have a dream about me in judgment. I'm serious about what I do, folks. You know what I mean? But it sounds like shit talk to people unless they experience it. You know what I mean? Black, Lord, Infinity, Art, Marvel. And God had been dealing with me on the name Liam. I know 2 young ladies I went to school with that got sons named Liam. You know what I mean? And Liam also spelled backwards is male, M-A-I-L. So it was just things that was coming to me. So it was going to be Black Liam, or B-L-I-A-M was going to be the title. Black Infinity. I went through a bunch of titles before I settled on who I am, you know what I mean? And that's why you hear that in the chorus. Who? Chorus got kind of written later. It didn't come right away. You know what I mean? So, yep. And I go off on it. You think I'm lying. I stroke the mane when taming them in Zion. No shaming in the sign. The waiting can't be trying any effort of breath. If it's pressing in my direction, I just assume it's part of the tuning of best affection and mood. You think I'm crude for claiming Alpha and Omega? The fountain with a flowing and a flying of a Malcolm type falcon with a... I'll be going off, man. Penny rating upgrader. Again, a lot of sexual references in there. Y'all should expect that. It's just, I told you, I make poetic, prophetic, sex and flex music. So you hear it in all of it. You know what I mean? Fresh production. I really like the beat. Number one, it reminds me of like a Wu-Tang beat. I remember it had a hard set of drum. I knew I wanted to do something on the album with it. I didn't know what. I remember when I got the first 8 bars together, kind of sort of, and I told Killer I wanted him to be on it. And so it was the last song that got recorded because he had to do his verse And, you know, I was pretty much wrapping up the album, but, you know, I needed him. He was on vacation. I was house sitting when I was recording. So he did that. And, you know, I think I had my second verse written as well. You know what I mean? By the time he went in, both my verses were written. The chorus got written more than once, though. You know what I mean? And that's why I was going to leave it off the album, because the first chorus, you know, I'll go in and do my vocals, you know what I mean, whatever I can get done. And when I get to a comfortable place, you know, I'll bounce it down and go listen to it. That way I can check, because I'm mixing too. So that way I can check my mixes, you know, if I need to go in and readjust some things in the beat itself. You know what I mean? Kicks are too high, or highs are too, whatever. Things I got to adjust with that. But it gives me a chance to listen to it in my van and you know, on my laptop, and hear, you know, different places where you'll eventually, you know, the sound will be coming through, and make sure I get my, you know, levels right. The chorus just wasn't hitting. I can't even remember what it is off the top of my head, though. So I was iffy about the song. Plus, I was iffy about, because Killer was literally coming off vacation. You know what I mean? And, you know, you got to unwind, and you got to get ready for work, and you got to get his daughter ready. You know what I mean? He's a family man. So for me, it was okay, timing-wise, can we get it done? And you know, can it come together? But once I got the chorus together, you know what I mean? That second chorus was what you hear. I was like, you know, we got something. I got to get this on there. And so when I went back in and heard his vocals, I was like, he did, you know, that's my guy. You know, shout out to Killer. It's lovely to hear when it comes together. You know what I mean? The best of the blessed of left out, you know. I love how I sung it, and so forth. And so it was so good. You know, I'm serious. I had to have a conversation with the Lord. Oh, Lord, I'm supposed to be going out Black Lord Infinity Art Marvel. You know what I mean? But it was so good. I was like, it's got to end the album. You know what I mean? It's got to end the album. And I told that to Killer. I said, you know what I mean? I said, you so did your thing. You helped make this track. It's going to end the album. You know what I mean? What I will say about this album is there were mysteries that came out of it. And the last track did it. There's some things I learned about the spirit world from listen to me, from recording the song, Fresh Production. And I didn't realize it until after I, you know, got the final mix and then added in, you know, you hear some, you know, I think it's Morgan Freeman's voice. You hear Morgan Freeman in this interview. He's talking about director and director's job. And so it's all put together. Now I just got to go back in and master it and so forth. But after listening to it, I won't tell you what I got from it, but it's going into the new project I'm working on. You know what I mean? It has to do with acting and so forth. But it blessed me. And so, whereas the David album, there was a lot of prophetic, bold mysteries and revelations that I put into the album. You know what I mean? Like specifically injected. The art album is more of what I got out of it. So you're putting it in there, but it's like, whoa. And I'm talking about even before it got released. I didn't expect to get out of it. That's the best way to sum up this hour. I didn't expect to get out of it the mysteries that I got. More than I, you know, put in. Having already, you know what I mean? Like stuff you already know that you're dealing with. I got the biggest whammy of information. It's so deep now, it changed the way I look at everything. From that one song. You know what I mean? In the second verse, let's go ahead and get into that. In the second verse, you hear me talking about different movies. There's a bunch of movie references in there, you know what I mean? It's really cool, you know what I mean? When I go back and listen to it, how many different references, you know. And you can count them. You can kind of pick out what's in there. Maybe you catch some I didn't catch. You know what I mean? But you know, it was a movie. So if I use the word it, that would be in there. You know what I mean? Uh, but so I wanted to do something film wise with it. My verse was already crafted that way. You know what I mean? In fact, if I'm correct, my which is the third verse, but my second verse, if I'm correct, that was written first, and then I went back and wrote the first 8 bars. I wanted him to finish my 16, so 8 and 8. Then I wanted him to come back. It came out perfect. You know what I mean? And I love the chorus, and then you hear me singing at the end. You know, where the music breaks out. The best of the blessed stuff is left out the television view for you. The dead love the mess shoved. It almost sounds like mesh. The dead love the mess shoved and nailed to the metal that's inducing you, instead of the breadcrumbs that led to the Gretel getting through with truth. Hansel and Gretel. The Gretel getting through with truth. Then there's the regret, cause I'm led to the something of Musa producing me. That's basically saying a lot of money is about to come to me in order to advance forward and put stuff out, especially in truth. You know what I mean? And so what's interesting is that's what my next record is. You know what I mean? I'm not, I won't go deep into detail, because I'm just now at the beginning stages of the beats and putting stuff together. So if you can tell, like, there's a link, and I don't always know. I didn't know the art album was coming. God knows I didn't know the art album was coming. You know what I mean? We coming off the Congress album. I'm promoting it and doing a lot of content around it. And I'm just always in beat making mode. I did not see the art album coming out. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful to God of how it all came together. A lot of the people who are in my crew, they really love, you know what I mean, a lot of the records, and I've gotten quotes by people. Some say it was my best record yet, and lyricism and so forth. And that, like I said, I worked really hard on it. I will tell you that. I worked my ass off on this record. It's definitely it sounds different from the David album, even though I love the David album. It's just different. You know what I mean? And when you hear this new record, you'll be like, man, what is he? I'm a different type of producer. I don't have a sound. You know what I mean? I have a soul. That's good, Lord. I don't have a sound. I have a soul. That's not to knock any of the producers, especially the ones I admire, and there's a bunch of them. You know what I mean? In my own circle, or, you know what I mean, or in the industry, I respect music for what it is. But I'm a diverse individual. Like, there's a lot of different things that I actually love. Thank you for watching. www.NastyOnTheBeats.com will pretty much take you to everything that I'm doing. It'll connect you with me on social media, Instagram, and so forth. I think the only one I got to add on there is Twitter, but I think Twitter might be on there too. Notice I still call it Twitter. Sorry. If you haven't checked out the Judge Hunter Greene of Elohim, I Am Art and This Is album, it's available only on Bandcamp right now. You can get to it through my website as well. And check out some of the other projects. Check out some of the other instrumental albums. And shout out to Lyric Hill, www.lyrichillmusic.com. Go check out his music. He's got such a deep catalog, you know what I mean? And I'm always going to represent my people, you know what I mean? So, that's what it is. Track for track.